The day before my wedding, I unzipped my garment bag, and the dress inside wasn't mine. My sister looked me straight in the eye and swore she had no idea what had happened. What she didn't know was that the hallway outside our locked bridal suite had security cameras, and before she smiled beside me at the altar, I'd already watched every second of what she'd done. My name is Claire Bennett, and until 3 days before my wedding, I believed my younger sister, Vanessa, would always protect me. She wasn't just my maid of honor. She helped me choose flowers, taste cakes, and calm my nerves whenever wedding planning became overwhelming. The day I found my dream wedding dress, she cried right beside me. Back then, I thought they were tears of happiness. I had no idea they were something else entirely. That dress wasn't priceless because of the designer. It was priceless because my late grandmother had paid for every stitch before she passed away. A few weeks before she died, she took my hands, smiled, and said, "One day, you'll walk toward the right man wearing something made only for you." Without telling anyone, she also stitched a tiny blue ribbon inside the lining, a little reminder that a part of her would always be with me on my wedding day. 3 days before the wedding, the boutique delivered the gown to our venue. At my request, it was locked inside the bridal suite until the ceremony. Only 3 people had a key. Me, our wedding coordinator Daniel Brooks, and Vanessa. At the time, I never questioned it. She was my sister. 2 days before the wedding, I stopped by the venue to make sure everything was ready for the rehearsal dinner. Before leaving, I unlocked the bridal suite just to see my dress one more time. It was perfect. The pearls shimmered exactly the way my grandmother had imagined. I gently zipped the garment bag, locked the room, and drove home smiling. Later that evening, Vanessa called. "Don't worry about tomorrow," she laughed. "I'll take care of everything." Her words sounded comforting. But something about her voice didn't. She sounded almost too confident. The following afternoon, one day before the wedding, I returned to the venue. I unlocked the bridal suite, walked over to the garment bag, and slowly pulled the zipper down. The moment I saw the dress, my heart stopped. At first glance, it looked almost identical. The same silhouette, the same neckline, the same lace pattern. But the closer I looked, the more wrong everything felt. The fabric was cheaper. The hand-sewn pearls were gone. My hands began to shake as I reached inside the lining. The tiny blue ribbon had disappeared. Someone hadn't simply stolen my wedding dress. Someone had carefully replaced it with another gown that looked almost the same. There was no broken lock, no damaged door, no sign of forced entry. Whoever had done this had a key and knew exactly what they were looking for. Then I remembered something. Several months earlier, after decorations had disappeared from storage, the venue installed security cameras in every hallway leading to the bridal suites. The cameras couldn't see inside the rooms, but they recorded everyone who entered and left. I turned to Daniel. Trying to keep my voice steady, I asked, "Can we watch yesterday's security footage?" Daniel led me into the venue's security office without asking another question. Neither of us spoke. He pulled up the hallway, footage from the previous afternoon, and started scrolling through the recordings. For nearly 20 minutes, nothing happened. Staff members walked past. A florist delivered centerpieces. A photographer stopped by to confirm the schedule. Everything looked completely normal. Then the timestamp changed. 9 p.m. Vanessa appeared on the screen. She wasn't alone. Walking beside her was a woman wearing a jacket embroidered with the logo of another bridal boutique. The woman carried a large white garment bag. I felt my stomach tighten. Vanessa unlocked the bridal suite. The 2 women stepped inside. The hallway fell silent again. Exactly 11 minutes later, the door opened. Both women walked back out. This time, the garment bag looked noticeably fuller than before. Vanessa smiled, thanked the woman, locked the bridal suite, and casually walked away, like nothing had happened. Daniel looked at me in disbelief. "Claire, we need to call the police." For a few seconds, I couldn't answer. Then I slowly shook my head. "Not yet." He frowned. "Why?" "Because right now, she'll deny everything. If the police question her before I know exactly what happened to my dress, she'll have time to invent a story. I want the truth, not excuses." Daniel nodded. He understood. Before leaving his office, he saved copies of the security footage onto 2 separate flash drives, just in case one was ever lost. That evening, I acted as if nothing had happened. When Vanessa called to ask if I'd checked on my dress, I forced myself to smile. "I did," I said. "It looked beautiful. Thanks for making sure everything's ready." There was a brief pause. Then she laughed. "See? I told you everything would be perfect." The relief in her voice told me everything I needed to know. She truly believed she'd gotten away with it. The moment we hung up, I drove straight to the boutique where my dress had been made. Its owner, Margaret Ellis, had known my grandmother for more than 20 years. The instant she saw my face, she knew something was wrong. After I explained everything, she disappeared into the back office and returned carrying my original customer file. Inside were my measurements, fabric samples, payment records, and detailed photographs from every fitting. Then she pointed to one document. "Every custom gown we make has a hidden serial number sewn into the inner lining," she explained. "It's invisible unless you know exactly where to look. And every number is unique." She opened another folder. Inside was a short quality control video taken after my final fitting. One employee had briefly lifted the lining while steaming the gown. For less than 2 seconds, the serial number was clearly visible. Margaret smiled gently. "If someone switched your dress, they couldn't switch its identity." I showed her a screenshot from the security footage, capturing the logo on the other woman's jacket. Margaret recognized it immediately. "I know that boutique," she said. "It's about 40 minutes from here." She called the owner herself. After comparing the hidden serial number with their records and confirming my original purchase documents, the owner immediately realized they were holding my wedding dress. The woman who brought it in had claimed it had been ordered by mistake and asked to sell it back. The boutique refused to release the gown to anyone else. Instead, they agreed to return it to its rightful owner. Late that evening, Margaret drove there herself. Just before midnight, she returned with my real wedding dress. She carefully unzipped the garment bag. The hand-sewn pearls were still there. The tiny blue ribbon was exactly where my grandmother had stitched it. For the first time that day, I finally allowed myself to cry. But I also made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Vanessa. Not yet, because by the time she realized I knew the truth, it would already be too late. The next morning, I made a decision that surprised even Daniel. I wasn't canceling my wedding, and I wasn't confronting Vanessa, not before the ceremony. If she realized I knew the truth, she would spend the rest of the day trying to explain it away. I wanted the evidence to speak for itself, so I wore the replacement dress. It wasn't the gown my grandmother had given me, but it looked close enough to convince Vanessa her plan had worked. As she helped adjust my veil before the ceremony, she smiled proudly. "See," she whispered. "I told you everything would be perfect." I looked into her eyes and smiled back. "You're right. Everything is exactly the way it should be." She had no idea what was waiting for her later that evening. The ceremony was beautiful. I married the love of my life, Ethan, surrounded by everyone who mattered most. For a few hours, I pushed everything else out of my mind, because no matter what Vanessa had done, she wasn't going to steal the happiest day of my life. When the reception began, guests laughed, danced, and celebrated together. Just before the first dance, I walked onto the stage and picked up the microphone. Before we continue celebrating, I said, "I'd like to thank someone who couldn't be here today. My grandmother. She believed that a marriage should begin with honesty, because the strongest relationships are built on truth." I paused. "She also left me something that means more to me than anyone in this room could imagine." I nodded toward Daniel. He quietly disappeared through a side door. A few moments later, he returned carrying a garment bag. Guests exchanged confused looks. Daniel placed it beside me. I slowly unzipped it. A soft gasp echoed through the room. There it was, my real wedding dress. I reached inside the lining and gently pulled out the tiny blue ribbon my grandmother had sewn, there years earlier. Then Margaret stepped onto the stage. She held up the original purchase records and explained the hidden serial number stitched inside every custom gown her boutique created. She showed the matching number inside my dress. Then she calmly explained how that same serial number had led them to another boutique, where the gown had been taken less than 24 hours after disappearing from the bridal suite. I never looked at Vanessa. I didn't have to. Daniel dimmed the lights. The reception screen came to life. The hallway security footage began playing. No narration, no accusations, just the video. Everyone watched Vanessa unlock the bridal suite. Everyone watched her enter with another woman carrying a garment bag. Everyone watched them leave 11 minutes later with my dress. The room became completely silent. I finally turned toward my sister. She was pale. Her smile had disappeared. "Claire," she whispered. "Please let me explain." I shook my head. "I gave you that chance yesterday. You chose to lie." No one said another word. Vanessa picked up her purse, walked quietly toward the side exit, and left the reception without looking back. No one tried to stop her. Several months later, she asked to meet. She admitted she had spent years comparing herself to me. She said that every compliment I received felt like proof that she would always come second. When she saw my grandmother's dress, Her jealousy finally became stronger than her love. She apologized. She also repaid every expense her actions had caused. I accepted her apology. But forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. Forgiveness is a choice. Trust has to be earned again. Today, my grandmother's dress hangs safely inside my home. Every now and then, I open the garment bag and run, my fingers across the tiny blue ribbon hidden inside the lining. It reminds me of something much bigger than betrayal. It reminds me that the truth may be delayed, but it almost always finds its way into the light. And on the most important day of my life, it walked down the aisle with me. If this story touched your heart, I'd truly appreciate it if you subscribed. We share emotional family stories every day. Stories about love, betrayal, forgiveness, and the moments that change people's lives forever. And now I'd love to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in Claire's place?